Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Mimi Edutains, a perfect mix of education and entertainment. I'm your favorite host, Hamidat Ahmed Ishmael. As promised, as mentioned in my previous episode, or as discussed, as said, as whatever you want to say it as, whatever. I said I was going to talk about motivation in my last episode. My last episode was just me reciting a poem about Nigeria and just saying one or two. I hope you guys enjoyed the last episode. So today's episode is about motivation, and I wanted it to be like a very free and open conversation with me and whoever is listening to this right now. But before we get into the discussions about motivation, let me give a little bit backstory to why I'm talking about motivation. Yeah. So sometimes last year, it was during the period of me writing my final exams and everything. So what's it called? After a particular exam, I had a breakdown, meltdown. What's it called? Whatever you call it. I had that thing. I wasn't feeling my best, and I was just tired. I was just doubting myself a lot. And I mean, it happens to everybody. It happens to the best of us. Trust me. When you just stay put in one place and you start thinking about life, start thinking about yourself, what you've achieved, what you hope to achieve, is it possible, and whatnot. So I was at that state. I just sat somewhere. I even met someone, but I didn't realize, someone was sitting down just opposite me, but I didn't realize I knew the person until hours later, when I realized, oh, this person has been here. And I don't know, I just didn't realize I knew the person because I was just lost in thoughts and I wasn't myself, right? So I texted one of my friends, because at that point I didn't even know who I was going to text, and I was waiting for my sister to communicate with me or something like that. Something was happening, but I just texted one of my friends and I shared with him what I was going through and what was happening in my head at that point. And then he started off by saying he's not, how do I put it? What did he say? I don't know how to put it in such a way that it sounds like what he said. Okay, he just said something he's not the best of the best with giving advice, but he could help and everything. That was when I just started opening up and seeing what I was going through. If you're listening to this, thank you. But yeah, the person probably would figure out when he listens to this. But yeah, he then went on to give me little tips, advice, and I really appreciated it. And he recommended 2 podcasts to me that day. Who would imagine someone recommending podcasts to a podcaster? Trust me, I love it because I love listening to podcast episodes of different podcasts. What did I just say? But yeah, he recommended 2 podcast shows. The first one is Tony Robbins' podcast, and the second one is the Mindset Mentor with Rob Dow. Trust me, I hadn't heard of these podcasts before, these podcast shows before. That was my first time hearing about it, and I was so grateful. At first, I was would I enjoy this? To be very honest, I don't really enjoy Tony Robbins' podcast. I mean, it's good, but it's just too long, and because it has to do with a lot of motivational talks, at some point it just I just get very bored. But the Mindset Mentor with Rob Down, God, that is a 100 out of 100. If possible, a 110 out of 100. It's too good. He doesn't talk for so long. Most of his episodes are usually in the range of 20 something minutes, some even less. I think his most recent one is 18 minutes, because I had to turn on my notification for this particular podcast show. It's so good. It's so good. He goes straight to the point. He's not beating around the bush, and he's so direct. Okay, you want to learn how to be consistent, right? These are what you need to do. This is what you need to start doing. You want to learn how to manifest things in your life, right? These are things you need to do. You can't just sit down on a couch and expect everything to just happen when you snap your fingers papa, everything happens. No, he goes so direct. So sometimes last 2 weeks, that's why I was I wanted to talk about motivation last week, but I just changed it. But it was before last week, I listened to a particular episode of his. if I can remember, the title is Stop Searching for Motivation. So a lot of times I want to do something and someone asks me, why haven't I started? And I say, oh, I don't have the inspiration. I'm waiting for the motivation.
I don't have motivation and energy to do all this anymore. I have tried everything and now I am exhausted.
I just realized that motivation is not what you need, because when I listened to this podcast episode, I didn't listen to it just once. And I did not just listen to it. I started listening to it and I saw how impactful it would be to my life. I got my iPad because I have like this very on good notes. Those of us who use iPad, we iPad girlies, I'm sorry, but yeah, an iPad is just so good. I have like this little notes thing on like in good notes, where like I have like my podcast everything in like a note, right? So I had to open that note and just jot things down from what I got from listening to that podcast episode. I listened to it first without like taking notes, and then I was like, no, this is so good to just listen, and okay, I listened to this episode. This is something that I need to take notes and tell people about. So as I said about like, when most times people ask me why I haven't started something, I'm always like, I'm waiting for the motivation. Even there was one episode I was talking about starting starting like a poem series in my podcast show, and I'm like, I don't have the motivation and inspiration to write. I don't need that. Like, I don't know. I feel like now I really want to like have video podcast stuff, because I want you guys to see like my expressions with everything. These are like few key things I took away from that particular podcast episode. It was like, okay, start being more consistent and not motivated. Then what else? Focus on being consistent and you would win. And have that mindset that I would do this no matter what. And I said I'm going to do it and I must do it. Not that I'm waiting for that motivation. What this episode was just basically my understanding, and what I got from it is that you don't have to be motivated to do something. You just have to be consistent to do something. You just have to always show up no matter what. You have to always do it no matter what. For instance, if you put your mind that, oh, you want to go to the gym every day and one day you're very lazy, motivation is not what you need, or motivation is not what you should be thinking of. Consistency is actually what you should be thinking of. You necessarily do not have to go to the gym that day. You do it at home, watch a video, watch YouTube videos. These are like things I got from the episode, right? You can like just set up like YouTube videos, just do stretches, or just decide to go for like a 30 minutes or 20 minutes walk, depending on whatever. You don't have to wait for that motivation. Just you have to be consistent and tell yourself, okay, you said you want to do it, you have to do it, you must do it. And the honest truth is that you only get motivated when you are consistent. This is so relatable to like what's happened within my podcast series. I wasn't motivated, I was just trying to be consistent, because there are a lot of days that I wouldn't want to do anything, but I'll just think about the fact that the aim of this whole thing is to stay consistent, right? So motivation was not what made me release an episode every day. It was consistency. I mean, there are two different things. Motivation is just about you being having the energy and being enthusiastic. I hope I pronounced that word well. But yeah, that is what motivation is about. But consistency is about dedication. That's what we need. Dedication and discipline. That's like the very like major difference between like consistency and then motivation. Motivation is also like, how will I put this? Motivation is like what drives you to do something, right? But consistency is how regular and steady you are with that action or with those actions of yours. For instance, I might be motivated to like start the poem series thing, recitation series thing, but I might not be consistent because I'm not always showing up. There are two different things, right? So we need to learn how to stop searching for motivation. Instead, start talking about consistency. So let me like continue listing out a few things I took note of from the podcast episode. Something about consistency is like a character trait, right? It's something you have to develop in yourself. is something you have to, what's it called? Something you have to put your mind to. Yeah. So I said something like, okay, focus on being consistent and you will win. And keep telling yourself that I will get it done no matter what the situation is. I'll get it done. For instance, content creators are like, okay, they want to do something. No matter what comes in their way, they was like, you should find a way to like get that thing done, right? Then I also took note of, you have to take action to be motivated. You have to do something, like take a step to actually get motivated. And you only get motivated when you're consistent, basically. And what else? Okay, it says start small. Say something like, okay, yeah, remember this point. It's something like, okay, start small. You know how I'm always saying this year I want to take baby steps, something like that. So you want to start a business, right? Start small. Ask your English. Ask your community about it. What do they think about it? Have people to like test run the things. If it's like a food business, cook for people. Have people to like, okay, what do you think? Is this something that I will thrive in when I start? Things like that. I mean, you're already like taking a step towards like the bigger goal, towards like the bigger achievement. So you should learn how to like start small. You want to start going to the gym. Tell yourself, okay, I have to go to the gym throughout February. From February 1st to the last day of February, I have to go. And then from there, you figure out that you're good with this thing and you want to continue. You don't want to stop. So he was like, say something like, I want to do this for 10 days. I want to create content for 10 days. I want to write for 10 days. I want to read for 10 days, maybe read 10 books in 10 days, whatever, or 100 days. Just, it depends on what you feel like is very achievable, right? Set realistic goals. These are things that I said during like my refresh reset episode, the first episode of the year. Set realistic goals, set like goals, little goals that you know that you would definitely achieve. And yeah, I think that's it. Those were like the key things I wrote from that episode. I totally recommend this podcast show. It's the Mindset Mentor with Rob Dow. I'm sure it should be available on Spotify and other places, but I listened to it on Apple Podcasts. But it's definitely available on Spotify. But yeah, you should go check it out. Like, turn on your notification post for this particular podcast. You can see how I'm not even advertising my podcast or anything now. I'm literally doing free promo for Rob Dial. But yeah, it's so good. People who like need like motivational talks, things that can, keep you going and whatnot. It's so good. His most recent one, which was released 2 days ago, I haven't listened to it yet, but it's about the power of mentorship. If I'm not wrong, the power of mentorship. Then there was another one I really enjoyed. It was about stop trying to make people love you. God, his podcast is so good, like so good. There was even one about improving one's mental health and whatnot. So please go check it out. But at the same time, also please turn on your post notifications, subscribe to the show of Mimi Edutains and everything. So yeah, I feel like I have been speaking. No, what am I saying? I feel like I have been preaching wonderful words. But yeah, that'll be all for today's episode. We need to learn how to stop setting. English is something else. I'm not even going to lie, but we need to learn how to stop searching for motivation. We should start trying to be consistent with whatever we do. Also, please, you all should like, comment, tag, mention, whatever they do on these 4 social media platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. I post about the ABVA challenge. You can find me everywhere at Mimi Edutains. No, you can find me on Instagram. Just check my Instagram post. Yeah, and what else? Twitter. I think it's Hamidat_25 on Twitter. I'm not too sure, but yeah, just show some love for Instagram post and everything. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Until our next chapter, stay curious, stay tuned. God bless you. Bye.